Inheritance tax. It can feel like a bit of a minefield, can't it? But what if I told you there's a specific way of gifting that could save your family thousands, but could also land them with a massive, unexpected tax bill if you get the timing wrong? Well, that's exactly what we're looking at today. Chargeable Lifetime Transfers. This whole guide comes straight from the expert tax advisors at My Tax Accountant, and they're here to show you how to navigate this tricky area, making sure your legacy goes exactly where you want it to.
Okay, let me start with a number that might make you sit up a little straighter. £7.5 billion. That's the record amount HMRC collected in inheritance tax just last year. And here's the thing, with tax-free limits frozen for years while the value of assets, especially property, has just kept climbing, well, more and more families are finding themselves caught in that tax net.
So it really boils down to this one big question. Who do you want your main beneficiary to be? Your family or the tax man? Because, without a really solid plan in place, a surprisingly large slice of your estate could end up going straight to HMRC.
So here's our plan for today. We're going to kick off with the basics of the inheritance tax problem itself. Then we'll explore the two main ways you can gift money during your lifetime. From there, we'll get into the real details of Chargeable Lifetime Transfers, or CLTs. And you'll definitely want to stick around for Section 4, where we uncover a little-known 14-year rule that catches so many people out. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a smart strategy.
Right, let's dive in. First up, the inheritance tax problem itself, because you really have to understand the problem before you can solve it.
So, what exactly is inheritance tax? Well, putting it simply, it's a 40% tax on your estate when you pass away. But, and this is the important bit, you only pay it on the amount that's over your tax-free allowance. Think of that allowance as a protective shield for a portion of your estate. And how big is that shield? Well, every single person gets what's called a Nil-Rate Band of £325,000. On top of that, if you're leaving your main home to your children or grandchildren, you get an extra £175,000. So for many people, that's up to £500,000 of their estate that's completely tax-free. The catch? These thresholds have been frozen for years, while asset values have done anything but. Let's make this real. Meet Catherine. She's 65, and her estate is worth just over £1 million. Now, after we apply her £500,000 tax-free allowance, there's still $550,000 left over. At a 40% tax rate, that's a staggering tax bill of $220,000 for her kids to deal with. All of a sudden, HMRC is her single largest beneficiary. And that's exactly the kind of outcome that good planning is designed to prevent. So, how do you prevent that from happening? Well, one of the most powerful tools in the box is gifting money away during your lifetime. But it's not quite as simple as just writing a check. There are two very distinct paths you can go down.
Okay, so you've got two main choices. On one hand, you have something called a Potentially Exempt Transfer, or a PET. This is what most of us think of as a gift. It's a direct gift to another person. It's simple. There's no tax to pay up front, and as long as you live for 7 years after making it, it becomes completely exempt from inheritance tax. On the other hand, you have a Chargeable Lifetime Transfer, a CLT. This is usually when you gift assets into a certain type of trust. It's a bit more complex, and as the name suggests, it could be chargeable to tax from day one.
Now, what's really fascinating is how these two types of gifts can interact with each other. But first, let's properly get to grips with CLTs, because this is where the rules get tricky and where both the biggest opportunities and the biggest pitfalls are hiding.
Right, the most crucial thing to understand about a CLT is this. It's considered chargeable from the very moment you make it. What does that actually mean? It means it immediately starts using up your £325,000 tax-free allowance. It doesn't wait 7 years to see what happens. The clock on your allowance starts ticking right away. Now, here's where it can get a bit confusing for people, so let's make this simple. CLTs are cumulative. When you make a new gift into a trust, HMRC looks back over the past 7 years. Any other CLTs you made in that time are all added up, and that total reduces the tax-free allowance you have available for your new gift. If your new gift pushes the total over your available allowance, that excess amount gets taxed immediately at 20%.
Okay, we've all heard about the 7-year rule for gifts, right? But what if I told you that, in reality, your planning sometimes needs to account for a 14-year period? This is a nasty little detail that catches so many people out, but understanding it is absolutely vital.
So let's just ask the question. We all know that if you survive for 7 years after making a gift, it's usually off the hook for inheritance tax. But what happens when you start mixing different types of gifts together? That's when this hidden 14-year timeline can suddenly appear. Let me show you how.
Let's walk through a quick story. Meet John. In year 0, he puts £325,000 into a trust for his grandkids. That's a CLT, and it uses up his entire tax-free allowance. 6 years later, he gives another £325,000 directly to his daughter. That's a pet. Then, another 6 years go by, and in year 12, John sadly passes away. Now, because the gift to his daughter was made less than 7 years before he died, it fails and becomes chargeable to tax.
And this is the trap in all its glory. The gift to his daughter is now on HMRC's radar. But here's the crucial bit. To work out the tax, HMRC doesn't look back from the date of his death. It looks back 7 years from the date he made the gift to his daughter. And what do they find in that 7-year window? That earlier gift to the trust. Because that first gift had already used up John's entire $325,000 allowance, there is nothing left to cover the gift to his daughter. The result? The entire $325,000 gift is now taxed at 40%. A gift made 12 years ago has directly triggered a tax bill on a more recent gift. That is the 14-year rule in action.
As you can probably tell, this is not straightforward stuff. The timing and, even more importantly, the order in which you make your gifts are absolutely critical. And this is exactly why a do-it-yourself approach to inheritance tax planning can be so incredibly risky.
So here's a really important tip for you. If you're thinking about making both types of gifts, really consider making the gifts to trusts, the CLTs, first. That gets that 7-year clock running on them as early as possible. If John had given the money to his daughter first and then set up the trust, the tax outcome could have been completely different. The order is everything.
Because at the end of the day, all these technical rules and timelines come back to one simple thing: providing for your family and getting that peace of mind that comes from knowing your affairs are in order. Good planning just removes all the guesswork and makes sure your legacy is secure.
So with all these moving parts, how do you actually put it all into practice? Well, as you've seen, this is a seriously complex area, and getting it right really does require specialist knowledge.
I'd like to leave you with this thought. Navigating inheritance tax isn't really about trying to avoid tax. It's about providing for your family with absolute certainty and complete clarity. The rules we've talked about are complex, and of course, everyone's personal situation is unique. That's why getting professional advice is so incredibly important. This guide was prepared by the team at My Tax Accountant, and if you want to get your own strategy right, I really would recommend getting in touch with them. You can also read their excellent detailed article on this very topic on their blog. And of course, for more guides just like this one, packed with expert advice, please do make sure you subscribe to the My Tax Accountant channel. Okay, before we finish up, just one last thing, and it's an important one. Please remember that this has been a general guide to help you understand the principles. But because everyone's situation is so different, it is vital to get advice that is tailored specifically to you. The team at My Tax Accountant are there to help with that, so please do speak to a professional before taking any action. Thanks so much for your time.